Storify me. What makes a story a story? I would like to invite our panelists on the stage for this session. Debangana Sengupta, Devisha Malhotra, Ram Shrivastava and Sai Arun Prasad. Can we have you on the stage quickly, please? Yes, let's put our hands together for our panelists. I would also take a moment to introduce our panelists to you. Sai Arun Prasad is the author of Wonder Stories Just For You. His vocabulary and his proper usage of word is his core strength. He has also been published in quite a lot of local magazines. Sai, welcome on stage. Debangana is the author of Book of Magic, Short Stories to Imagine. She aspires to make an indelible impression in the minds of readers with her writing. She also is very fond of sketching, singing, dancing and producing digital art. Debangana, welcome on stage. Devisha is the author of A Trail of Tales. She is a born entertainer and avid supporter of underrated artists. She also loves reading books, writing poetry and songs. Welcome on the stage, Devisha. And Ram is someone who writes incredible raps, by the way, which is something we discovered yesterday. He has been writing since he was only 4 years old. In 2020, Ram published his first adventure fantasy novel, Second World. In the last few years, Ram has set up Phoenix book clubs across multiple schools. Welcome Ram, welcome all the panelists, and I would also like to invite on stage Mudita Chauhan to host this session yet again, once again. Okay. Okay. Yes, it clearly is.
Okay, so as all take your time.
One second. I see I need no help moderating this session. I can just leave it to you. No, one second. So just a quick thank you for everyone, to be back here, and something that I forgot to say in my last session. Huge thanks to all the parents and the teachers. I know I met a principal who've come here to support your wards, your children. I think it's a beautiful ecosystem that Muskaan is creating here. So thank you everyone. Please give a clap to yourselves. And two of my amazing panelists have something to say, right? So go ahead.
So this is a very good clearance note. We made our last session very, very funny. We don't intend to make this session funny.
Who are we getting side at?
Yeah, we are literally gonna make you all laugh. Prepare to laugh!
Maybe we should rename our session. From Storify to stand-up comedy or sit-down comedy. Yeah, okay, let's see how that goes. But what I'm going to do is, since we are talking about the structure or the elements that go into good story making, I thought that we would start with something little offbeat. Since you guys were so good and helped me with my poetry earlier, now I have a quiz for you. Are we ready? Yeah? I still can't hear you guys. Abhi to chai pani ho gaya, right? Yes. Okay. So what we're going to do is, for me, one of the interesting memories of any book that I've read, anything or any piece of writing that I've read, is how it opened, how it pulled me in. What was the hook? And that is a question that I have had for my panelists as well, which we'll explore later. So I have a little quiz on opening lines of famous books. Okay? Ready? We're going to start with a very simple one. So I'm sure you're going to all shout out the answer even before I finish my question. Here's how the book starts. Mr. and Mrs. Dursley. Yes, I knew it. Dr. Vidrag, etc. Okay, number 2. Once there were 4 children.
The Fearless.
Whose names were Peter, Susan, Edmund and Lucy. Yes, I see my panelists are super excited. So that's of course C.S. Lewis, and the whole Chronicles of Narnia starts in the wardrobe, right? Okay, one more. How many of you like picture books? Picture books, Rich Valley. Do we like picture books? Have you been reading books like since we were little babies who couldn't read but could look at pictures, right? So there's this really, really iconic picture book that starts with these words. In the light of the moon, a little egg lay on a leaf. Wait. Let's go to the audience. Anyone? Yes! Who said that? That's beautiful. Do you remember that from the book or did you guess it? You remember it. Isn't it an amazing line that sort of stays with you all your life? Similarly, there's another one that I have, which is from a book that if you haven't yet read, I would like each one of you, young and old, young at heart, to read, please. This is how it begins. Once, when I was 6 years old, I saw a magnificent picture in a book. It was a picture of a boa constrictor in the act of swallowing an animal. Here, yes, who's that? Who said that? Yes, the Little Prince. Here is a copy of the drawing, and then of course there's a funny drawing which looks like a hat. It's the Little Prince, or in French it was La Petite Prince. It's a beautiful book which talks, it's not about writing, it's just about life. And it's also science fiction, and it's also poetry, and it's all rolled into one. It's just beautiful. So please get your hands on a copy. It was written in the 18th century. It's really old, but there are, of course, there are reprints and everything. Okay, last question, which is not from a children's book, but I think it might be something that some of you would read as you read about the French Revolution in history, as you grow up, maybe in grade 9. Here's how it begins. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. It is, Dickens it up. But let me just complete it and I'll tell you why I have used this quote. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times, it was the age of wisdom, it was the age of foolishness, it was the epoch of belief, etc., etc. And then he goes, it was the spring of hope, which was the winter of despair. So the book is called A Tale of Two Cities, and this opening paragraph has duality, has yin and yang kind of push and pull happening, and that really sets the tone for what's going to happen in the book. Apart from the act, the event itself, how it all gets resolved is because of a situation of twinning. So I just wanted to bring this up because I think that one of the great elements of a story, of a great story of a book, is how the author has this vision of what he or she, they are going to do with it, and how they just clarify it so quickly at the very beginning. I think some books have that power. Well, I'm older, so I'm entitled to say that. Okay, not cute, interesting, exciting.
Yes, that's a way better word.
Okay, go ahead.
So this is my opening line of my story, The Jewel of Harland. Of the many things Jason would want to do, playing a game of was pretty low on the list.
It's sort of like makes you want to immediately read the next line and say, what is happening here? What's happening? It's a mystery story.
It's a crime.
It's a crime-solving story. And interestingly, your other authors that you like to read are Agatha Christie, the queen of crime, the genre, and Satyajit Ray, who also, among his various writings,
Feluda series.
Feluda. So
if someone has not read the Feluda series, do read it. It's awesome, great, super. It'll make you immediately want to turn to crime. Maybe not like literally doing crime. Oops. No, not to do that. It'll make you write more books in crime, because his books are so informative. Not only in the crime series, because his main character knows so much. He instantly gives you knowledge. So I would really recommend that book. It's Feluda. It's by Satyajit Ray. In the last session, ma'am mentioned that, I believe, in the poet thing. And he's written a series on a main character called Feluda. It's a detective series. It's a really wonderful series. Everyone should try it.
Pradosh Mitta, right? Right. So I want to ask you, Sai, this whole, you are sort of immersed in the whole idea of detectives and crime and this and that. When you're looking at writing a story, or I think you're probably writing a book soon, do you have you plotted out the entire, what's going to happen, who's going to steal.
Murder. Murder is a better word.
Okay. Well, I didn't want to say that, I was looking for a euphemism, but are you plotting it or are you sort of playing along and improvising? How is it happening?
I just go with the flow. I have read like so many crime stories. If you ask my mother or father, they will tell you he is obsessed with criminal stories. Because that's what I am. Technically, I'm a criminal story maniac. And I've read so many that nowadays it just comes to me naturally. Whenever I see like one person being like, I'll be like, is this guy gonna murder me? Or is he gonna steal something? What is up with him?
Well, that's interesting because the only crimes I look for are crimes of grammar. As an editor, so people have told me that I'm, that's not a good thing to do, but anyway. Interesting. Detectives, mysteries, other worlds, fantasy is something that's pretty, something that I've observed about a lot of young writers today because I guess that's the genre that is selling also a lot. Devisha, who's my next panelist, also has a story which is about a theft. The bearer. That's the one that was in the Scholastic. So anyway, we'll come to that later. But Devisha is a self-proclaimed humorist, and I think that she has a beautiful little passage that she's written afresh. I would like her to read that. Please listen to her carefully because I think it is quite interesting. Go ahead, Devisha.
People are always running, whether it's from a problem or towards a solution. In this city, everyone runs, but in circles. No one dares to break the cycle, or at least that's what people thought. Hythe was a small city with nothing much to do, although at times it felt less of a city and more of a fictitious place that never existed in the first place. It wasn't much of a visitable place, but when people did visit, they left questioning what they had just witnessed. When I mentioned that in this city everyone runs, but just in circles, I meant it, literally. People don't walk here, they run, and they don't stop unless you tell them. What happens when they stop, you ask? And here I've left on a cliffhanger, so you can read further yourself.
I mean, how do you think of this? Yes.
I want to go there now.
Hythe, you said, right? Is it based on the real Hythe in England or is it just a place you imagine?
It's a place I imagine, but it can be anything you want, I think.
Oh, okay, because Hythe is a real place,
real
so I thought.
place.
But what I liked, the one word that sort of jumped out at me is visitable. I mean, it's interesting. The earlier session we did was playing with words, and I love how you use a word which is not normally used and make that an adjective for a place that immediately gives it a character. So that's really wonderful, and that's the skill of, I think the more you write, the more you read, it comes quite naturally. So that's really cute. You say that you enjoy reading Holly Black. Holly Blacks?
Yes.
Who is a fantasy writer?
She's a fantasy writer as well as a crime murderer.
Okay, and you also write like Sudha Murthy. So could you want to tell us a little bit about how these, because Sudha Murthy's books are very, of course they're diverse. There's folk tales, and there's mythology, and there's grandma's tales. And then you have these murder mysteries and crime, and how are you, how diverse do you want your reading to be?
Well, I think I have two sides. One is the more calmer side of me, which is Sudha Murthy's. And the other is the more hectic side of me, which are these murder documentaries, murder series. But what I really like about both of these women is that they are so inspirational for, I think, everyone who reads them. And it's just very inspirational to see how many writers that influence you are just so majestical to you.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I think there is no dearth of reading material, and one of the answers to the question how to write is really, I think Saina said it earlier, is do you read? You just read, and you immerse yourself in that entire world of world making, word making, etc. So yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you. I'm going to ask Ram, because Ram has actually written a 70-page book.
Yeah.
Did you do that? How did you? Wow. Was it the lockdown that gave you the time, or did you
No,
just...
it was much before lockdown. I've
Oh, I
been
see.
writing ever since I was 4. So I began with comics, and initially I was writing comics all the time. But when I got a story for a more adventure and fantasy novel, which had so much complexity, I couldn't make pictures for it. So I began writing this novel.
That's interesting. Many ways of expressing the same idea. But you are, what we have here is an excerpt from a book that you're writing that is going to be published a couple of months from now.
Yeah, it's my current book.
So will you give us a sneak peek into it and let's hear some of it? Yeah?
Okay. The land had always been safe to walk upon, or at least until now. As soon as I kept both my feet upon one of the floating chunks of land, it went down under. Before I had time to respond, the whole of it sank into the deep, dark, bubbling depths of the red water. I clawed the water, kicking my legs. I had to get out, but I just couldn't. I kept sinking. I was going to drown. The water was cold and uncomfortable. I couldn't see anything but red for miles around. Thick, uncontrolled red that seemed to have evil intentions in every microbe. It dampened my mood, giving me motivationless to try and swim back up. Above me were the fading figures of my friends and rays of light seeping in through between the pieces of land. The largest one fell upon my face. My friends were leaning down, looking at me. Their eyes were wide, like they were ready to jump down. No, wait, they were going to jump down and try and save me. I could see it on their faces. This water would end them too. I tried to shake my head to warn them, but my body didn't respond. My body had stopped following the orders given to me by my brain. The red was taking control of me. Why should I try, I asked myself. Why don't I give up? I rammed these thoughts away. I tried to get up. I really did. But it didn't work. Tiny bubbles started escaping from my throat. My chest was going to burst. It hurt like pain I had never experienced before. Dozens of times worse than my greatest escape. Bigger bubbles started escaping my throat. My friends, the ceiling, my entrance and escape point faded into the red. That was all I could see now. Red, red, and red. Was this really the end? The last bubble escaped my throat and my mind went blank. This was the end of Sental's reading. It's the main character, so he obviously is invincible and can't die, so...
Obviously. And you are red, I see, in character.
Yes.
Yes, I was of course laughing away. So I don't know if this is a comic book or a...
No, I was laughing because of the fact that I actually like the fact that people try to drown, try to not drown. But I was kind of shocked that he actually... Did he actually die?
He's the main character.
No, he didn't die, but he died. You're
We
saying
have
he
to
died and
read the
didn't
book.
die.
Let's not give spoilers.
Yeah, after that he wakes up.
Okay, enough.
No, we want people to read the book, don't we?
Okay, let's just say that that is red controlling him. That means that's basically Ram controlling him. That's all I can say.
I'm in red too, so this is a bit scary. How is this idea coming to you? Like, is it a dream? A waking, sleeping dream you're having? Or where are these strange worlds coming to you?
Well, this scene was made so that the character could transport to almost death and then talk with another supernatural being.
Oh, I see.
So I had to make this whole scene, which was so close to dying that the reader would actually feel that it was the end of the book. So I wanted to make it so realistic that it would just leave the reader shocked the whole time after.
Well, it definitely does shock you. But Ram, very interesting, and I'm going to buy one of the first copies of this book when it's out, so please let me know. But you also are involved in an enterprise where you are setting up or helping to set up book clubs, am I right?
Yeah.
So could you tell us a little bit?
Yeah, so I began writing when I was 4. Yesterday I also mentioned that my teacher Davis gave me an assignment in USA to make a book on chocolate milk. After that first assignment, it was given to the whole class. A group of us started a book club. I remember joining the book club and ascending the ranks of the book club. I came from newspaper man to the CEO of the book club. And then After that, I began writing with the founder of the book club and started my first ever comic book series, Evil Berry. So then after that, I had to sadly move away from US. And wherever I've been, in Bangalore, I set up another book club. And now in this school, I set up a book club called the Phoenix Book Club. All of us encourage each other to write books, and I'm the founder of the book club there.
I think that's wonderful because there's something that I wanted to also talk about. Yes, go ahead, clap for him. It's wonderful. Very enterprising at this age, and why not? Something that we should all, and it's not just children but also parents, I think that we can create, because we have the ability, we have the thoughts, and we have the language for it, is literature for the children, by the children, of the children. We can write the stories, then we can put them together in a library or a book club and just keep passing them along, and we're going to create so much literature that, we're never going to, okay, let's not put bookshops out of business, but we're going to have much more than we have right now, right?
Yes.
So thank you for doing that, Ram, and thank you everyone who reads and writes. You have said that you like Dave Pilkey, that's Captain Underpants.
No, actually I don't like Captain Underpants at all.
Oh.
I like his other comic which is called Dogman.
Dogman, right.
He's the first ever author that I idolized.
Okay, wonderful. And you also like Tolkien, who is at another level of world making.
Yeah, his books are like the base of adventure and fantasy. You can't write a book.
They are like the base and the pinnacle and the Mount Everest and Mount Olympus and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah?
You can't write a book without reading The Hobbit.
Wonderful. And also Arkinara, which is interesting because it's such a contrast to, it's such a realistic life in a small town, lyrical. But yeah, wonderful, Ram. So I wanted to next move on to Debangana. Debangana also has a shorter piece for us, which is very different from Ram's piece. So I would, I think I'll ask her to start reading it and then I'll come back to questions. So Debangana, please.
So this is a small excerpt from my book of Magic. In a flash, a vortex of wind appeared out of nowhere, and she saw herself sitting on a huge dome-shaped vehicle entering a whole new world. This moment was so fast, she didn't get the time to even realize what was happening. For Amelia, it was a sudden terror she had seen in movies. Suddenly there was a creaking sound. It sounded like something had collided against the land. When she opened her eyes, she found herself stiff, but to her surprise, she was wearing a beautiful dress nobody had ever seen.
That's lovely. It sort of reminds me of one of the stories that I read in your collection. I think it is Cinderella. That she's taken the fairy tale of Cinderella and she's twisted it because Cinderella is a secret agent with murderous instincts. So Sai, you're going to love this one. So thank you. Yeah. One second. We have to also take questions from the audience, so we'll come back to you. But I wanted to say that Debangana has many facets of creativity because she also dances Odissi. She learns music, Western and Hindustani, I think. She also paints. And so my quick question to you before we move to the audience is, how do all these creative pursuits inform your writing? Like, do they give you some material to write with?
So basically, all these are art forms. Art forms are automatically like, it's like a string of creativity. It ignites a flame in you, and this flame is incomplete if you don't really have that instinct that I want to accomplish something in my life. So I really wanted my name on a book of mine which I've written. So these creativity, like dancing, singing, whatever we all pursue in our life, these are the staircase kind of where we want to reach our goals, our destiny. So yeah, they create a major impact in everyone's life, I'm sure for that.
Lovely. Thank you, Debangana. And we have time just for 2 questions from the audience. Does anyone have questions? Yes, we have one here. Tanya, get the mic. Go to Tanya first. And one more question after that, so we'll go to Christian.
This question is for Devisha. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. You mentioned that you like Holly Black, and her work is really atmospheric, really detailed, and she creates these new fantasy worlds. So, do you think that reflects a bit in your writing, or your writing contrasts her style?
Definitely reflects because, as I mentioned, the city hype. It wasn't exactly a new city because it already exists, but I feel like once you read it, you get transported to this whole new world, like exactly when you read Holly Black's novels.
Lovely. Next question, Christy. That's all the time we have for questions.
Yeah, so it's for all of you. How do you guys deal with burnout?
No, burnout. इतना ज़्यादा लिख लिया कि अब नहीं लिखा जा रहा.
Oh,
My brain is exhausted. Exhaustion.
My usual writing plan is writing on a notebook and then putting it into a computer. So that usually burns out my hand a lot, like you're saying. And my mind also gets exhausted. Okay. So my mind also gets exhausted. So what I do is, one day I'll write 2 pages of my book. Then the other day I won't write anything. I'll just sit in a random place the whole day thinking of ideas for the end of my book. So that's how I deal with burnout.
Yes. Anyone else wants to take that question? Yeah.
So I think actually I've never experienced burnout myself because I think my brain works on overload. Because most of the time I keep my brain working 24/7, I'm used to it now. Anyway, even if I experience it, what I would think is, normally I just read a book. Books give me ideas, ideas give me books.
Lovely. Very well articulated, actually. Lovely. On that note, we will have to end this session. Thank you to our wonderful panelists. And you all know what you have to do now. You have to come to the front so that we can have a nice picture. As for the rest of us, we have, this was actually the last total panel of the inaugural edition of Muskaan Literature Festival. This was the last panel. And that is all the more reason that we should put our hands together once more for them. Because for the past 3 days, we have finished some very good things. Half the time I'm wondering about how they do what they do. The other half I'm wondering about the kind of words they use, which I have absolutely no idea about. So I'm secretly Googling the kind of vocabulary all of you have. But then you're all writers, so it merits that.